Pain. If you look at this grid of all the questions we ask, most of them are centered around pain. What terrifies them? What angers them? Anger is a kind of pain. We separate them, but it's pain. What are they desperate for? Desperation is a pain. Obstacles they encounter on a daily basis. Repetitive thoughts. People have repetitive thoughts run to their head. They're always negative. Isn't that interesting? People don't have the repetitive thoughts. Damn, I'm good. Damn, everything's good. Damn, everything's good. I can't stop thinking about everything's good. No, it's bad. Bad stuff. What are recent disruptions they've encountered? That's annoying, right? All of this stuff, most of it is negative. A little bit of gain, a lot of pain, okay? Who will spend more money faster? Joe with a brighter, whiter smile or Jane with a crippling toothache? She will spend money faster and she will spend more of it. People pay to get out of pain faster than they pay to get pleasure, okay? Pain simplify. What are their excuses? What are their limiting beliefs? What are their complaints? What are their obstacles? What are their enemies? What are their fears? These are the things I'm thinking about constantly. I'm always thinking my attitude is if I just remove the excuses, they will buy. I don't have to add anything, okay? Who made the statue of David? I always forget. Is it Michelangelo or Da Vinci? Which one? Michelangelo, right? Michelangelo didn't add anything. He removed. Subtraction before addition. It's from a strategic problem-solving position, subtraction before addition is super effective. How do we do less and get a better result? How do we take things away? Okay, that's a close I use with clients sometimes too. They say, Jason, I don't have time. I go, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come with the 5 things that take up the most of your time that are important to you. And I want you to list them 1 through 5. And then I want you to look at number 5. And I want you to assign how many hours per week you put to that task. And you agree with me. You're not getting the results that you want, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm only asking you to replace number 5 on your list with my thing. And only do my thing half as long as you do the thing that's number 5. Congratulations, I've just freed up more time for you. What are you going to do with that time once you've freed it up? You're going to use it or you're going to waste it? And they're like, oh, sorry, Jason, right? So I subtracted from their life. I didn't add anything. That's more effective than addition, okay? Pain strategies, challenges you face, contrast present and future, misconceptions, external pressures, past struggles, the enemy, self against the enemy, anger. Anger is a gift. That's what Rage Against the Machine says. Informed pessimism, okay? And reminder, you can put pain into your hooks, like pop quizzes, fortune telling, the tall task. Most people are too carrot and not enough stick. The stick is more motivating. Our problem is we've solved the problem that our people face. So we don't have the baggage around it anymore, okay? I cannot relate to somebody who doesn't have money. Theoretically, I could. I don't really know what that's like, okay? I can't. So it's really hard then for me to know the struggles and pains that they face. I have to force myself to continually try to look at it through their eyes. And you should do the same. The more successful you get, the further away you're going to get from your audience. That's where success becomes a curse. Challenges you face. So I always think of what's the externalities, the things that can't control, what's the internalities, the things they can control but don't, and how do I get commitment? So external events create internal states. Anything that happens to you externally will create an internal state, a story that will be attached to it. You text somebody, they don't text back, they must hate me, right? They were not in a place where there was cell phone reception at the time. They don't hate you, okay? But that's the external events creating an internal state. Address both and then get commitment to move forward in spite of or because of these challenges. So in ASM5, insights. First, here are the challenges I believe you think get in your way. Remember, this is part of the hook, right? You're undercapitalized, blah, 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 okay? Plus, now I add in more. If I had to guess, you have more opportunities placed in front of you than you can even consider, much less take advantage of. You often let little things get in your way and you're afraid to make wrong decisions. Support from others for what you are trying to do isn't what you'd like it to be. Most marketers do not have your best interest in mind when they're trying to quote-unquote solve your problems, and you face confusion and conflicting information on a daily basis. Put this in front of any market and they'll agree to it. This is a cold read in a sense, but it's true, right? You have too much opportunity, you're afraid to make wrong decisions, you don't get support from other people. The people that are supposed to help you tend to take advantage of you, and you're confused because you're getting told 2 different things that contradict each other. That's how I would say it today. I flowered language it up back then because I was afraid to go straight for it like I am now, okay? I study that. I'm almost done studying this health stuff because I swear the stress it creates for me is a net negative. So like, oatmeal will kill you. Then this other guy, oatmeal is great for you. And then this other guy saying, you got to eat nothing but meat. And this other guy saying, you got to eat vegetables, right? What they do is they look at the whole data set, they find 2 or 3 things inside the data set, and then they magnify it. Everybody does it, right? So I'm like, just forget it. I'm just done. I'm just going to eat clean foods, and I don't really care, okay? But that's big in this market these days because information is more available, confusion and conflicting information. So we're talking about their challenges right up front. This is the pain, okay? Consideration. With that in mind, I'm nervous you'll discount what I'll show you today. You'll think it's not worth replacing things you're already attempting to do to achieve your goals. You're unfairly prejudiced towards it. I'm going to utter, and then I prove it to them. I'm going to utter this word and what's your response? So this is the pain at the beginning, okay? Now, we had to do this in ASM5 because at this point in time, we'd sold several $1 million of this stuff. And simultaneously, here's what was happening. Customers were tired of hearing about it, and the competition was now using it as a scapegoat. This is better than Amazon. Screw Amazon, do this instead. Their marketing became reactive. So they were polluting my audience. It was pissing me off. So this is how I addressed it, okay? But that's the specific context of it. The general application is pain. We go for the pain right away. Nobody cares how, when celebrities bitch and moan about the struggles, they get no empathy for that, right? They get none. And they should, by the way, because anybody struggling should get empathy. But they don't because the prejudice is, you're rich and famous and beautiful, how could you have problems? So they miss that step in their webinars. The celebrities do. I got to teach them better, right? 1B. I like to now exaggerate cynicism and just put a little dash of hope, like salt. Just kind of sprinkle it in there, right? Okay? People will hold on to a glimmer of hope in the face of nearly insurmountable odds. Men's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's the best example of that, right? You've got to give them just a glimmer of hope that maybe, possibly, their life isn't a complete waste. You might be thinking, yeah, those are 1 in 10,000 customers, because I just showed them a whole bunch of testimonials. Here's your thoughts. You might be thinking, these are 1 in 10,000 customers. They already had assets and advantages in place. You might be thinking, well, that's their gross, Jason, but what's their net? You might be thinking that they must have done something extraordinary that mere mortals could never wish to achieve. You might be thinking they already mined all the gold and nothing is left. So I like to exaggerate it. I go even further. You'll see some of my closes that I use. You think that I lied to you, that I deceived to you, that I made up all the testimonials. I'll say things like that now. I like to take their here's the greatest thing of all is when you do this. You take somebody's excuse and you magnify it. Guess what their response is to that? Well, it's not that bad. Now they're arguing against you. They're saying, no, Jason, it's not really that hopeless. Are you sure? Like in the dating market. Are you sure? I don't think any woman alive would want you. Well, it's not really that bad. Okay, maybe. I guess you'll have to convince me further, right? Like the 1 in 10,000 customers. Well, it's not that rare, Jason. Well, okay, I have assets too. I'm not completely hopeless. Yeah, I know it's all gross, but there's got to be some net in there somewhere, right? So bringing them up and exaggerating the excuses is more effective than ignoring them or even just right-sizing them. I want to exaggerate them. In the Wholesale Formula webinar, I exaggerate very, very liberally and in a way that's very fun, okay? And then here's the glimmer of hope. However, you're also hopefully thinking, maybe it is possible with the right approach. Maybe if I do just a bit of what they do, I could bring in a bit of what they bring in. Maybe it's worth me being at least open-minded to the opportunity, okay? I'm just cracking the door open of possibility. I'm not asking them to do a fire walk, Tony Robbins style yet, right? I'm just asking them to look at the hot coals. We just got to have an open mind. And that's what we continually do over and over again. We take the pain, we acknowledge it, we amplify it, and then we give them possibility. Because they only know pain. We give them the possibility that maybe it's not as bad, okay? Now, this is beginner markets. Advanced markets still are as painful, but the beginner market is in the most pain out of everybody. Somebody says to Jason, who comes to webinars? And the answer is almost nobody, except for the people that need the help the most. Those are the people who come to webinars. The people who have exhausted other mechanisms and are now willing to sit on a webinar for 2 hours with a complete stranger. Those are the people that come to the webinars. Those are the people that are in the most pain. So this is why we focus on the pain so much, okay? Contrast. It's a really effective technique. Contrast the present to the future. Current limitations against future aspirations. Value is best understood when it can be compared to something else. No value is intrinsic, no value is objective, not in this world. It's all subjective. Pain cuts twice as hard and deep when you know what the opposite pleasure is. Then it hurts even twice, okay? So gender intelligence. So Barbara Annis, she hires our company to write a webinar for her. It's a very dense and complicated subject, so the team can't do it. I have to step in and write it. And I come up with a pretty damn good pitch. There's an interesting story about it. I'll tell you in a little bit. That's an open loop, by the way. Gender intelligence. My goal to get you from we've been striving for gender balancing for the last 15 years with no results to aha! It all makes sense now. My goal is to help you break through the glass ceiling of women advancing to senior positions which can produce these types of returns here. My goal is to get you from why haven't we made any progress with this to aha! I know exactly what to do now. Contrast. You suck here, this is what it could be like. A few slides later, then I get into the misconceptions. So I combine these. You can combine these elements just like hooks. So the misconceptions, this is really good. Before diving in, let's first clear up some misconceptions that keep companies gender unintelligent. So this is the pain, right? Common misconceptions, thinking in terms of equality and sameness, when the strength is in our differences. Our species has been successful for millions of years directly due to compatible differences. Nature intends and is designed for us to complement, not compete with the other agenda. More on this later, right? So compare and contrast. This is really good stuff. Common misconceptions is a great way to do this. Gender diversity is not gender intelligence. Balancing higher numbers often increases turnovers. The cure is worse than the illness. Increased numbers without contribution will leave both genders dissatisfied. Focus on gender intelligence and diversity will take care of itself. Once I show you this, it will be a game changer. Open loop, right? Common misconceptions. Isn't this an HR problem? Diversity programs not linked to financial goals are merely window dressing. Without the proper context, HR often makes women feel as if they're simply a box being checked off. By focusing on what I'll show you, HR will become a great help instead of a hurdle. Okay? I got all this out of her book. Like you're thinking, Jason, how the hell do you know any of this stuff? I don't. It's not my strong suit, believe it or not, right? This is corporate too. It's super corporate-y, so I'm calibrating the corporate world. I just went through her book and highlighted these really good sentences that she had. And then I went through like 150 or 200 sentences, and I'm like, ooh, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here, right? But these misconceptions compare and contrast. Here's what people think the problem is. That's not really the problem. Here's what people think the problem is. That's not really the problem. Common misconceptions. We already treat everyone equal. Sure, everyone is equal. Some are just more equal than others. I'm all for the advancement based on results. You'll soon discover that 99% of companies measure results based on how men prioritize issues, solve problems, make decisions, work with teams, and lead others. So the misconceptions is you're not treating others equal even if you think you are treating others equal. And that's compare and contrast. So we can focus purely just on external pressures. States are abstract. So remember earlier, external events lead to internal states? Happiness, sadness, joy, despair. Those are abstract concepts. The war in the Middle East, that's a very concrete thing. Different between the two, okay? Bankruptcy is concrete. The feeling you have of failure is abstract. So we try to focus on concrete, specific things in addition to abstract concepts. And then we tie them to some unmet expectations. So with the gender intelligence, again, this was really easy to do. I go, you're facing pressure from the board. These are typically Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 clients that we're writing to. So yeah, webinars work for everybody, by the way. Okay? So you're facing pressure from the board. You're facing pressure from the government. You're facing pressure to make quotas without real progress. And most often, you've achieved political correctness at the expense of effectiveness. Any CEO who's watching this right now is pissed off because he knows it's true. He tried to do right. He got screwed. And he feels like he's hopeless. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And this is really powerful, and we're just pointing at events. By the way, events have the implication of, it's not your fault. I don't use that much in marketing. A lot of people do. It's not your fault. It's a really powerful marketing angle. I never really liked that. I feel like it's very disempowering to the end user, so I typically don't do it. But if there ever was a case, the implication is it's not only your fault. And these are events that are out of your control, okay? On OMG Project to Simulation, we did 3 different affiliate webinars for them. So me promoting as an affiliate is a damn good frame because I'm selling somebody else's product as the affiliate. It's so much more effective than selling my own product, okay? So OMG Project Assimilation. With that said, why do people ignore Google for free traffic? Here are some reasons. So this is the pain, right? It takes too long. It's impossible to get immediate prominent placement in Google. Or is it? It's too hard. It isn't free. You have to spend lots of money, time, and effort. It's unreliable and risky. With that said, suppose there was a way to do it that could get immediate measurable profits, that didn't require any more expertise than operating a smartphone, that only required a moderate amount of effort and capital, and could scale infinitely. So I say, yeah, here's all your problems. And in spite of all your problems, what if we could still make it work? Then would you do it? Yeah, I get it. These are your problems. I've acknowledged them. I understand them. And I could even sell against them. Okay, so you're saying it takes too long. If it didn't take too long, would you do it then? You're saying that it cost too much money. If it didn't cost any money, then would you do it then? Question. Then would you make a valid effort to take advantage of this opportunity? That's the tie-down, right? So this is really good. Bring up the pain right away and then acknowledge it. Even though these things exist, if there was a way around them, then would you move forward with this? So we're going to talk about past struggles now. There's a saying in politics, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And I think about that in the sense of our customers. Let's use that energetic force of despair and challenge, and that's still energy. The difference between excitement and anxiety is really a word and the context that surrounds it. So what are the struggles that they've faced as a market recently, historically, and disruptions often are where the source of these struggles come from. Because a lot of people are very reactive in life. Our goal is to try to help them be more proactive. So Kick the Giant. So this was another webinar we did. They've had to pay money. Not to overcomplicate things here, but the way that we sold it was a pitch that went like this. It was on a VSL that sold a webinar. VSL said, hey, listen, there's two ways that you can have this training. You can either pay $25, and if you show up live and attend the whole thing, I'll give you the recording for free. Or if you can't make it, or if you know you're going to leave early, pay me $250. Either way, you get the exact same thing. But if you show up, you can only pay $25 and you get everything. So it's a frame. I've used it for various different offers over the years. It forces people. Because if I got a 3 or 4 hour training, it forces them. If you stay, you're going to get this treat at the end of it. It's a recording of the thing. If you don't stay for the whole time, you don't get anything. By the way, 4% to 6% of people will pay for $250 for the recording. It's an AB offer. Anyway, so Kick the Giant. Kick the Giant is an analogy. So an analogy can be a hook. That's kind of advanced, so I didn't use that under the hooks. I use analogies a lot. If you want to get really good at selling, master analogies. We'll talk more about that later. Kick the Giant. The analogy is Amazon's a sleeping giant, and if you kick it, it might wake up and shower you with money. Past failures. So this is how I hook into this. I literally call them past failures. Some of you have put products on Amazon that didn't sell. You may have even bought info product software and other services to fix this to no avail. No wonder it's so scary to try to get a new product on Amazon. I love that phrase. No wonder it's so scary. Or no wonder you haven't bought yet. Because I didn't tell you about that. No wonder. Such a good phrase, okay? Product selection isn't the problem. The certainty of product success is the problem. How Amazon's changed. Between 2013 and 15, when you listed a product on Amazon, it just seemed to make 1 or more sales immediately. This happened to about 90% of products. Some of those products, just by initial sales, were able to take off and become big winners. Even those products that didn't naturally take off were easier to rank than products that were listed and didn't get immediate sales. All of this is true. We're doing a case history that this shared segment of the marketplace has experienced, right? The theory, it seemed that Amazon was sending enough traffic to each product to test it to get analytics. Then in 16 to 18, the number of new sellers exploded. Now the free sale test seems to only happen about one out of 100 sellers. All this is true, right? Even worse, the Amazon search engine is not governed by logic and reason. You could launch several different products against similar keyword competition, and some of them would do great, some would do okay, and others do nothing at all. I call this the slot machine effect. People think success in the real world is like, if I just do this, then I'll get this result. And that only accounts for a small section of the probability. So if I just think hard enough that it'll be heads when I flip this coin, then it will be heads, right? That's how they think. They think that literally, they don't understand probabilistic thinking. That I could do the same input and get a variety of different outputs. And the outputs are weighted. Sometimes I get this, sometimes I get that. So on Amazon, as it grew, there was less certainty. Everybody could do the exact same thing in the exact same environment, and some people would get a great result and some people wouldn't. It wasn't the individual. It was a probability. That's all it was. So that's what we're talking about here. I won't get too far down that rabbit hole, but your ability to manage your clients' probabilities for them can be a great benefit to how you help people. Because otherwise they take losing personally, when sometimes they just flipped the coin and it was tails. It's not a personal issue, okay? We do this with Launchpad as well. So just to run it back, with Kick the Giant, I'm reaching into a shared history that my market has of struggle, and I'm laying it out bare. That's a really good, effective way to get at pain. What's something recently that's made their life suck? Or what are some shared experience where life sucks? Let's talk about it, because then we can do something about it. A problem not acknowledged is a problem that you are unlikely to solve. So we have to acknowledge it, okay? Launchpad. Here's what we do in Launchpad. This one's really good. This is like you take the knife and you twist it. This is how this one goes. Level playing field. Amazon is anything but. Amazon changes FBA fees effective August 30th. Amazon Basics has came in and just taken over other people's private label brands. Becoming successful on Amazon, and what do you have to look forward to? So even success is a failure, because then you get hijacked. I just saw the David Goggins video yesterday complaining about all the counterfeit Can't Hurt Me books that are out there, and he's losing millions of dollars. It's still a problem, right? Hijackers, how Chinese counterfeiters continue beating Amazon. Here's a product. This guy shouldn't be banned. So think about this. Set yourself on the stage of my audience. I have some people whose account have gotten banned on Amazon, and they really didn't do anything wrong. Yet this damn son of a Genetti's shop here, 6,815 negative reviews. And it's still live, selling products on Amazon. When I show this to people, it makes their blood boil at the time, okay? Now, by the way, show not tell. This is a great example of that. I just didn't say counterfeiters. I showed the most egregious example of this, okay? Listing sabotage. Competitors arrange for someone or someone else to buy your product and leave a 1-star review. That happens. Coincidentally, most of these reviews are from accounts that have never reviewed something before and never will review anything else again. And it's gotten worse since incentivized reviews have been banned, because there was a short period of time in Amazon where you can say, this is my honest and unbiased 5-star review in exchange for getting the product for free. We exploited the shit out of that one while it was valid, that it wasn't valid anymore. So instead of lifting up your own listing, some people started pushing down other people's listing. And this was a thing. And we're bringing all this up, okay? Now, by the way, people are hesitant to do this to their audience for 2 reasons. One, they think if you bring up the problems, then all people will do is focus on the problems. They'll get in a state of helplessness, and they can't get out of it. And they think about their problems anyway, so you might as well bring them up. The other one they don't want to bring this up is because I sold these same people on the dream that is Amazon. And now I'm coming back and saying, well, hold on a second, right? And for some people that feels weird or even incongruent. I don't feel weird about it at all. Anything you sell is going to have limitations to it. It's going to have things that are outside of your control. There's going to have some problems with it. So I can either say, we better not help these people at all who've been marginalized, or we better come back to them and offer a solution for them. So it's not weird, even though some of your audience will think it's weird. And say, well, Jason, you told me that this wasn't going to happen. I'm like, dude, I don't know the future. I made a bet just as you made a bet. We stack the deck in our favor as much as we can. But I want to continue to help you. And if you have rapport with your audience and they trust you, then you could keep coming back. But these things are going to happen no matter what you do, okay? Selling against the enemy. I don't do this one very often. It's just not in my nature. This is good for you to know. I'm giving you lots of techniques. Some of these are just as valid as others. If they are all valid, pick the ones that resonate with you the most. Only a sociopath is only going to pick the very best one that he can do, even if it makes him uncomfortable, right? So I don't do this one very often, but damn, is it effective. It's easier to blame others than it is to take responsibility. Hatred is a stronger short-term motivator than love. People will do more dumb stuff out of hate than they will out of love. They do a lot of dumb stuff out of love. They do even dumber stuff out of hatred, right? What's the book? The whole Count of Monte Cristo, right? The whole book is fueled on hatred. And then what are the last 2 things? Wait and hope. I think about that a lot, okay? That's the conclusion. Great book, okay? So the enemy, I'll give you some examples. So in the consumable system, which is the latest webinar that we did, I really did go after the enemy here because I felt it was just. I said, specifically, you'll gain access to the hottest e-commerce market to ever exist while bypassing all the traps, gotchas, limitations, and barriers to entries that otherwise would lock you out, forcing you to stand on the sidelines as you watch generational wealth pass you by, helpless to do anything about it. Damn. That's hardcore. But the stakes are high. We got to put it in those terms, okay? Today you'll be handed the key to unlock the prison cell that is keeping you trapped and away from the financial freedom that you deserve by doing a complete 180 against the powers to be to flip the deck that's been stacked against you and instead stack the deck for you. To get there will expose the dark underbelly of not one but two different bad actors working against you, bad actors who are currently robbing you of your wealth and your health. Yeah, we're not messing around here, right? This can only be done because I've hitched my wagon to a true disruptor that can make us all a ton of money while we right an incredible wrong. Reason, excuse selling, okay? The 42-year-old guy, one second, the 42-year-old guy who just buys that hot new convertible, he's telling you, well, I've worked really hard and I deserve it, right? That's his excuse that he's given. The real reason is because he's having a midlife crisis and he wants to pick up the secretary. That's why he really bought it, right? So your excuse is you're going to do good in the world. The reality is you're selfish and you just want a lot of money. But I'm giving you both. Chris.
So these sentences you have, is this your script or is this the actual slide? Or is the slide just like that graphic, but this is your, everything at the bottom, like you're not putting that actually on the slides,
I thought
right?
about mentioning this, but I'll mention it now, okay? I'm now scripting my webinars. I don't recommend you do it. It's insanely hard and tedious, but I'm making deals where, like a deal like this, if they exit, I might make $30 million, right? So the stakes are high. So we write. If the stakes weren't that high, I kind of just 80-20 it. Now specifically, just so you know, no text on slides is really powerful on a webinar, provided you have a script, okay? And you can read the script in a way that it doesn't sound like you're reading the script. That's important. Now, if you notice these bold words, those are the animations. Those are where it tells me to advance the slide. So in this animation, today you'll be handed the key, and the key shows up. The key isn't on the slide initially. So even on slides where there's no word, there's activity. The human brain has been programmed to see change every 3 seconds because television does a camera cut on average every 3 seconds. So I don't usually get there, have a slide change or animation happen every 3 seconds. So today you'll be handed, and then the key shows up. It spins up there, right? Now this is where it spins up. The key shows up here, but then what happens is to flip the deck. So when flip is bolded, that deck spins. And then instead, stack the deck. That's when the other 3 decks drop from the sky, okay? Stupid stuff. I don't know how much this really works. I still do all my own animation. I should outsource it. I haven't figured out that part yet. But that's how I do it now. And then this one doesn't have any animations. That's why there's no bold. This one has animations. So this starts as a blank screen, and then it says bad actors who are currently robbing you of your, and then actually it's just your blank, and then wealth shows up, and then your blank, and then health shows up.
So when you've bolded it, you hit an extra click of your clicker, and that triggers the animation.
Yeah, so the animations are all built off of clicks. So, you know, next click on slide, whatever, right? All this is really tactical stuff. Tactics are here, strategies here, vision's up here. The vision is what's my paradigm, what's my hook, what's the thing that will change everything. That's where you should focus most of your time on. The strategy says, how do I make that happen? Here's the 3 to 5 things that mostly make a difference. Tactics are goofy shit like this, right? This is what happens when you get bored of doing the same thing a million times over, which I've done, and you say, how do I take it up a level? How do I take it up a level? How do I take it up a level? And then you start doing insanity like this, okay? This is literally nothing on the screen other than the image itself. And then this is, okay, good. So let's continue. This can only be done because I've hitched my wagon to a true disruptor that can make us a ton of money while we right an incredible wrong. And even if the stakes weren't that high and it was merely about making a bunch of money, then know this. You won't get rich until you have this. And then I advance the slide. Notice the commonality again. Build them up, build them up, build them up, take them back down. Build them up, build them up, build them up, take them back down. This is called push-pull. We'll talk more about that later, okay? Leverage is the answer. If you have leverage, you win. If you don't, you lose. By the way, then this becomes animated. The baby moves. Yeah, I get fun with it sometimes, okay? But this is the enemy. Really what we were doing there is selling against the enemy, which was the supplement industry. The supplement industry, most of you are taking supplements that are expensive piss water. That's what you're taking, because it all goes out when you pee. I hate to tell you, but you're being screwed. A majority are, statistically speaking. So that's one of the industries that we're attacking is the supplement industry, all right? Anger. You can get people to do stuff out of anger more easily than any other emotion. Fear traps people, like fight, flight, freeze, okay? So fear typically will freeze people. Anger gets them to fight or fly. I like getting people mad at me in a controlled way. Damn it, you son of a bitch, I'll show you. I'll buy your product and actually use it. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, or whatever, right? I like to get them mad, okay? In a way that I can control a little bit. Even though change is the only constant, we continue to elude ourselves into business as usual and view disruption as an annoyance and not an opportunity. So anger is a gift, as I said earlier. Disruption is an opportunity, but that's not how your audience is going to see it. So we got to help them see it, but let's get them pissed off first, okay? Ultimate social challenge. So this is, just to give you the context on this one, they would run like a $7 challenge back in the day on the Warrior Forum, which was a really popular internet marketing forum, the biggest forum of all time. And they would sell like 3,000 or 4,000 users on $7. And these users were like bottom tier level leads. But they would pay, and then Maria and Tina here would run them through a challenge. This is way before Pedro Adao did challenges and made them popular. We were doing challenges, I think this was back in 2011. And they would run them through these challenges, and I would come in on day 3 of the challenge. So they would do 2 days of really cool stuff. I'd come in on day 3 and close, and that's the only way they could make money. Otherwise, you don't make money selling $7 offers where you give affiliates 100% of the money. So these affiliates over here would get 100% of 7, and then we'd split 50% of whatever we sold, which in this case, average ticket was $200, okay? So we came in, and Facebook had just changed how they were doing a whole bunch of stuff. This is like 7 changes ago, not the change you probably think it was. This is how old I am in this market, right? Because they changed the feeds, essentially. And I take the role of the customer. At first, I was pissed. Facebook's forcing branding on us as opposed to direct selling. A lot of what was working quit overnight. However, once I saw a client of mine have a massive upswing in participation, engagement, and more visitors, I changed my tune. Plus, when I noticed there were a lot of local businesses who were even worse off, that's what I should say, than before due to the changes, I realized the opportunity. So I took their anger, assumed it for myself, and then used it. I mean, one of the best ways you can teach anybody is not to tell them you're doing something wrong. You tell them a story of how you did something wrong that is eerily similar to exactly the situation they found right now, right? So I see a lot of younger guys now because I'm 40 and I'm seeing the next generation of talent run in. And they're making a lot of the same mistakes that I made. And if I say to them, don't do that, that's a mistake, they're going to be resistant. But I'm going to say, I really like what you're doing. You know, I used to approach it that same way as well. And it worked really well for me. Some of the challenges that I found were X, Y, Z, 1, 2, and 3. And now they're more receptive to hear it. That's not an individual, that's like a coaching thing, but I think about that and put it into the webinar, okay? I go, take that SEO. I'm tired of Panda updates, negative SEO updates, Google page rank update, May 3rd, 2012. So this is when we were doing this webinar right after that. Penguin updates, Google Dance updates, right? We'll get that one in a second. So I'm just leaning into the anger for them. I typically don't use anger very often as a direct specific thing, just because I'm naturally not an angry person. But it is a tool in the toolkit, okay? Informed pessimism. So think about it. When people bought the Amazon opportunity, they were uninformed optimistically. They knew everything of all the ways it could go right, but they didn't know the details. And then everything has the curve where it goes through informed pessimism. Now they see all the ways that it could go wrong that they didn't anticipate, and then those are overrepresented in their minds. So then they forget all the important stuff, and they only focus on the bad stuff. And then they have the crisis of meaning. Should I stay in this thing or not? Most crash and burn. But if they can see through it, then they go back into informed optimism. So this is generally the journey. People say, man, webinars are really awesome. This guy Fladlin talked about how much money they make. I want to do one of those. And then they start doing one of those and they say, holy shit, public speaking, that's scary. Selling, that's scary. Technical, this stuff sucks. Forget webinars. I'm going to do something else, right? Or they say, well, hold on a second. How does it that webinar is still the most effective tool? that every marketer ends up using. Okay, well, maybe there's more to it. Maybe it's not as scary as I thought, and then they see through. Okay, so I'm thinking for markets that are in the informed pessimism stage, this is where you want to meet them. So in the pain, they know enough to know what hurts. So they know Amazon will rip them off at this point in time. They know that blah, blah, blah will happen, okay? So eWoo trip. So we partnered with a guy named Sean Hart, and we flew people over to China. And this is how I start this. This was originally a keynote in front of a live audience in Vegas, and then we took it and did it a webinar as well. So I start the presentation, and I say, okay, here's what happened when you joined and you started selling on Amazon. Day one, you were optimistic and hopeful. You didn't have any sales. You put down $2,500 in inventory, but you knew that that was going to turn into gold. And look at you go. And day 10, guess what? You achieved your goal. You have rank of your product. Because back then, the hack on Amazon is if you gave away products for $1, you could rank almost anything. I was on page 1 for sunscreen, face cream, vitamin C serum, all sorts of shit. It was crazy. The problem was you had to sink in $2,500 in physical product costs plus whatever marketing to give it away. So I'm like, okay, here you are day one, you're ramped up, you're raring to go, you got your product online, you even ranked the product. Fantastic, this is wonderful. Day 17, now you're getting full price sales coming in as a result of your ranking. This is all going according to plan. At this rate though, here's the problem, you're going to be out of inventory soon. So you got to re it up. So you buy another 1,000 units. So this comes in, and so now you're $6,800 in the hole. But that's okay because you're ranking and you're going to be selling product. Now how many days is it going to take though to get back to break even? 85. 85 days. It gets better though. At this point you only have 550 units left in stock. So what do? You got to order more inventory. So you order another 2,000 units. Now you're $10,000 in the hole. And you've done everything right. You're back to break even on day 185. And then I didn't have it here on the slide. But the next slide says, is this bad? Not really. Because you have the brand, you have this, you got reviews, you got that. But the money still isn't quite there. Your life hasn't changed yet. At the time I had this tweet, because Kanye West just tweeted out, this is the first of many Kanye controversies. He had this tweet where he's like, I'm $53 million in debt, pray for me, brothers and sisters. I go, that's not that bad, so I had that in there for the webinar, right? I did that live. I did not do that on the webinar itself, because everybody laughed like you guys did. They laughed even better back then, because that's when he was launching his clothing brand. And when you have an audience, they can hear the laugh. On a webinar, nobody can hear the laugh. So I typically don't use humor as much on webinars because it doesn't land the same. But this is informed pessimism. Everybody here is like, oh, crap. Yeah, This is challenging in a way that I didn't anticipate. And we informed them of all this stuff. It's not like this is new, but sometimes the heart hears what the heart wants to hear. And then they have the experience and they go, what do we do? So we were selling them a trip to China. But not China where everybody else went. They went to the Canton Fair. We took them to eWoo. And they were able to source products more effectively, more cheaper, blah, blah, blah. So this is the frame we're setting to pay off the offer later. But we're meeting the audience where they're at. Informed pessimism. So if you have an audience that's in the cycle of informed pessimism, walk them through. This is what your life is like. There's still hope, but there's challenge. And if you don't help them, they're going to go into that crisis of meaning, and they're going to fall off the planet. Now we can do combos. So the wholesale formula, right? This is how we start this webinar. There's a slide before that says, Jason Fladlin here and I have a bone to pick. That's the first part of the hook. That's really good. Unless you're already rich, chances are in our current political climate, the pressure for you to make money has increased. Even if by some small miracle your finances are better than ever, hopefully COVID has made it clear to you that you need far more than just get by money. You need to make a lot of money. So what are you doing? You're looking to take matters in your own hand. That's smart, but it's risky. Many online opportunities promise big profits, but bring with them even bigger risks. Large front investments are usually required. Cash investments, time investments, emotional investments, and who knows if it's going to pay off. This is good stuff, right? While it's true that if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got, taking on unnecessary risk is pointless and reckless. And then a few slides later, we get into more product-specific objections. Nothing happens until something is bought. You need a product, scratch that. You need multiple products, many products, high-quality products, high-profit products, in-demand products. Driving traffic is the hardest thing to do. So this, I'm not doing these in sequential orders now. I pulled out some specific slides. Driving traffic is the hardest thing to do when it comes to making money online. It's expensive. It's time-consuming. It requires technical skills. And already established businesses can outspend you and outsmart you. So how do you compete? You don't. And then later on, this is another one. When traffic meets product, most don't realize how insanely hard it is to get a complete stranger to buy something from you online, sight unseen, just because they happen to stumble across what you're selling. I spent a decade mastering the science of consumer psychology, and I can tell you this, the more I learn, the less I feel that I know. You need to know what to say, and more important, what not to say to get strangers to spend money with you, and for that to happen, you need trust. All I've done is just showed them all of the ways in which they don't have a snowball's chance in hell of ever making money online. That's what I've done. Yeah, that's the combo. But I've added all the different things in there that we've taught around the way, a lot of them, right? And this is a master class. You should absolutely study this. Now, I gave you the pitch deck when we wrote it in August of 2022. So this is when COVID was still big. I've had to change it. Now it's the geopolitical climate instead of COVID. But there's always some sort of issue at hand, right? How to use pain. So go to the Know Your Customer bonus that we'll provide to you. And that really breaks down to getting inside the pain in the brain. Make sure it's there front and center. So many webinars miss pain or they barely mention it. And practice the flip. So somebody give me a benefit. Just out loud.
Look younger.
Look younger, right? Don't look older. Somebody else give me another benefit.
Time freedom.
Time freedom. Having no choice of what you can do with your day. Being limited by somebody else telling you where you can be and when you can be. Somebody else give me another benefit. Lose 15 pounds. Don't be a fat ass anymore, right? I mean, that one doesn't work. But I practice that flip constantly. Anytime I hear a positive, attach a negative to it. So, hey, look better and no longer have to look in your wardrobe and see all of the stuff you can no longer wear anymore, right? Now you can wear it again. So there's always that flip. Look younger, and so when you look in the mirror, you feel more vibrant. So many people avoid a mirror, and they don't look at the person that they should love the most, which is themselves, right? I'm just riffing. You get it, though, right? So I always think in terms of both. Every time I put a gain, what's the pain? I don't always use both, but I think in both. Pain, gain. I do the opposite, too. When somebody comes to me with a complaint, I flip it into a positive. Somebody says, Jason, I've used this close on a webinar before. They said, Jason, it would be irresponsible of me to buy this product because I just had a newborn baby. And I said, really? I said, it sounds to me like you have an inbuilt reminder of what's at stake. So every time you pick up your little girl and you look her into the eyes, you have a reason to step up. I wish I had the motivation that you had right now. And he goes, okay, I buy it, right? Yeah, I'm flipping it. I don't have enough money. Good. Now you have to be resourceful because you're not full of resources. And guess where the biggest breakthroughs come from? The people that are resourceful, right? Jason, I'm brand new. Good. You haven't been corrupted by the cynical influences that are out there yet. You're still a babe in the woods. I can do something with you. You're like fresh clay in my hands, right? They say, Jason, I'm really experienced. Excellent. Now you know where the body, any position you give me, I can win with. That's my attitude. So practice the flip, okay? Other consideration, calibrate. Too much. If you make their life too dark and blurry, they won't even have any motivation to do anything ever, with you or otherwise. So you got to make sure it's a lot, but not too much. Not enough and they won't change. Too much and they won't change. There's a spot. The higher the price, the more pain. The bigger the ticket you sell, the more pain that there is, that you have to work. Pain is most useful during the close. That's usually where people will use it. I try to use it throughout. But it's most useful during the close, okay? Now here's a mischaracterized interpretation of everything that we just taught about. So Jason, if I'm understanding this correctly, here's what we need to do. We need to find the weakness, we need to open that wound, we need to pour some salt in, and then we need to sell the treatment. That's a good way of looking at it. Like, just intellectually, if it's an easy thing to think about. Like whack them over the head with a mallet, then give them an aspirin, right? Some people go about it that way. They really do. I've sit in on those meetings. I'm like, I don't want to, dude, there's no amount of money in the world that's okay. Here's how I look at it, okay? A tale of two pains. Your prospects are always going to have one of the two pains. So either going to have the short-term pain of doing something different, or they're going to have the long-term pain of doing nothing while slowly descending into nothing. So if it's two pains, I'm going to give them the better of the two pains. Jim Rohn says it this way: there's two pains that we all must suffer, the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. And the pain of discipline weighs ounces, and the pain of regret weighs tons. And so I think like that. We have to give them a pain. The pain of doing something different is always going to be painful, because you've got to take a chance, you've got to try something new, you'll probably fuck it up the first time that you do it. That's a pain. But the pain of not doing something, and when something needs to be done, is even worse. So that's the way that I look at it. Okay? The reality, the pain to stay the same needs to be greater than the pain to change. If you really want to change people, this is the attitude, okay? Did you study Erickson at all? Milton Erickson? Okay, you did. Good. So I learned this from Milton Erickson. So she's a clinical, Heather, you're a clinical hypnotherapist. You studied, right? For the same reasons that I did. I never got the degrees because, like, I don't know. I don't like collecting things. It's weird. But I did it for the same reasons you did, to become better at persuasion. And so I learned this from Erickson, the greatest hypnotist I think that's ever existed. Essentially invented conversational hypnosis. And he would lean into this as a change agent more than any other. When it's too painful to stay the same, you will naturally change. So the story that I always told it was, a patient comes into him and, well, here's how Bandler would do it. So Bandler took Erickson's stuff and like really brought it to the world. Bandler would go to the psychiatric hospitals where people were crazy, and the guys that said, I'm Jesus reincarnated, right? Instead of trying to convince them they weren't, he'd just come in with the 2x4s and the nails and start measuring them. He says, that looks about right. And he goes, what are you doing? Well, you're Jesus, aren't you? Yeah. Well, Jesus gets crucified, so, we got to say, I'm not Jesus anymore, right? The pain to stay Jesus was greater than the desire to change from Jesus, So that's how I think. If I really want to change somebody's behavior, I don't try to show them how my product is a good deal. I try to show them how it's more expensive not to buy my product. Keeping the money will be more costly than spending it with me. And then you get change much easier that way, okay?